Hello, year one. Carrying on with our book. I wonder how far Mr. Mac's foot is now from stepping into the poo. Well, this chapter will give us a clue. It's called Not Far. Measure a mouse's eyelash. Not down, across. That was how far Mr. Mac's shoe was from the poo, and the rescuers were in Egypt, in North Africa. They would never make it on time. Chapter Where in the World is Rover? Rover climbed the steep sandy bank of the River Nile and saw right in front of him the Eiffel Tower. Yes, said Rover. Ha ha! Just as I expected, he ran. Chapter The Seagull gives his side of the story. Fish? Fish? Don't talk to me about fish. I hate fish. Cod? Blech. Salmon? Blech. Jellyfish? Blech. Herring? Haddock? Halibut? Yuck, yuck, yuck. Fish fingers? Yuck. Fish toes? Fish necks? Elbows, knees, eyes, fish teeth, fish hair, fish glasses? Yuck, yuck, yuck. For a million years. Fish? Ugh. If I had my way, I'd round them all up and throw them into the sea. Chapter Where in the World is Rover 2? Rover ran to the Eiffel Tower, through the tourists and ice cream sellers. A man with a flowery shirt and a video camera stood in his way. What's the matter, pal? Said Rover as he ran between the man's legs. Did you never see a baby on a dog's back before? The man's mouth dropped open. Did that dog just talk? He asked his wife, whose mouth had also dropped open. I think so, she said. How come he didn't speak French? Said the man. Maybe he's on his holiday too, said the woman. Ah, said the man, that explains it. Under the Eiffel Tower, beside one of the giant metal legs that lifted the tower to the sky, Rover found what he was looking for. It was a rabbit hole hidden under a bush. It was a rabbit hole hidden under a bush, and Rover dived into it. He ran through the dark of the tunnel. They could hear the others behind him. They ran and they ran. Then they saw it, a tiny dot of light in front of them. They ran, and the dot got bigger and bigger, but it was still very small, still very far away. They ran, and now the dot was getting bigger and much brighter. Rover was getting tired. He was panting and thirsty. He took one last breath and ran and jumped into the bright light and landed in the garden, right behind the Giggler on the bike. Mind the poo, he shouted. Kayla flew off Rover's back, over the bike and the Giggler's head, right over the wall, and landed in her father's arms. Can you see in this picture, the dad's foot is about to land on the shadow-shaped poo, and Kayla is flying over the wall. Have a little look, see. Abba! Mr. Mac looked down. Too late. His foot was in the poo. The left leg of his brand new trousers was up to its knee in Rover's. Stop right there. Yes, Rover? Are you saying that I was too late? Yes, Rover. Are you seriously saying that I was too late after all of that? The Mac guy's foot ends up in the stink. Yes, Rover. You see, it's funnier if Mr. Mac's shoe... Forget funnier, pal, and listen. See these teeth? Yes, Rover. Now they're funny. See your ankle? Yes, Rover. My teeth get to know your ankle. Now that's what I call funny. Ha ha ha. Do you understand me, pal? Yes, Rover. Well then, was Rover too late? No, Rover. Good. We'll start again. Yes, Rover. Oh, that's a good... It's a good save by Rover. Rover saves the day. Rover was getting tired. He was panting and thirsty, but brave Rover kept running. He took one last breath, and brave, handsome Rover jumped into the bright, bright light and landed in the garden right behind the Gigglers on the bike. Mind the poo, he shouted. Kayla flew off Rover's back, over the bike and the Giggler's head, right over the wall, and landed in her father's arms. Abba! Mr. Mac looked down, just in time. His shoe was right there, right bang on top of the poo. How near? How close? The shoe was kissing the poo. Mr. lifted his foot and walked right over the poo. And now Rover jumped over the wall, followed by Robbie and the even smaller than the smallest Giggler, followed by Jimmy and Billie Jean, followed by the other three Gigglers, biggest, middle size and smallest. Hang on a minute. How come they could see the Gigglers? Well, when they want to be seen, the Gigglers can be seen. They stopped being grey, the colour of the wall, and became bright blue in exactly 3 seconds. Billie Jean looked at the poo and at Mr. Mac's shoe. Oh, thank goodness you're safe, she said. Yes, said Mr. Mac. But if it hadn't been for... Hang on, said Mr. Mac. You did say mind the poo. Abba, said Kayla. You, Kayla, said Mr. Mac. Your first words, mind the poo. This is the happiest day of my life. Say it again. Say mind the poo. Abba. She said it again, said Mr. Mac. He kissed her forehead. He held her up over his head. He laughed. For a minute there, I thought it was the dog that said it. Woof, said Rover. Dogs can't talk, said Jimmy. Dogs can't talk, Dad, said Jimmy. Woof, said Rover. Who ever heard of a talking dog, said Robbie. Take it easy, pal, Rover whispered. You're overdoing it. The biggest Giggler came up to Mr. Mac. Sorry about the poo, she said. What about the poo, said Mr. Mac. She explained about adults being mean to children and dog poo and Rover and plastic bags and shoes. But we made a mistake with you, she said. That's okay, said Mr. Mac. Keep up the good work. The vulture doesn't work for you. The vulture doesn't work for you, does he? No, said the smallest Giggler, but we know him. He doesn't really like being a vulture. He much prefers sandwiches to dead bodies. I'll share mine with him, said Mr. Mac, but not today. Mr. Mac had a trick up his sleeve. Well, actually, it wasn't up his sleeve. It was in his flask. He had filled the flask with orange juice with bits, and as everyone knows, vultures don't like bits. He was looking forward to lunchtime, but he said nothing to the Gigglers. Would you all like to come back to our house for breakfast, said Billie Jean. We'd love to, said the biggest Giggler, but there's a woman waiting for the Giggler treatment. She wouldn't let her kids watch telly because they didn't finish their parsnips. Oh, the mean old thing, said Billie Jean. She'll be walking to the train station in a few minutes, said the biggest Giggler. We need some of the fresh stuff, Rover. The middle-sized Giggler handed a 20-pence piece to Rover. Put your money back in your pouch, pal, said Rover very quietly. This one's on me. He walked past Kayla. It's a dog life, he whispered. Bye-bye, kid. And he walked behind the bush, humming a song called How Much Is That Human in the Window? The middle-sized Giggler followed him with a plastic bag. The smallest Giggler followed with her poo claw, and the even smaller than the smallest Giggler followed them. And as they walked away, they became green like the bush and disappeared. Then Mr. Mac heard the train leaving the station. Oh no, he said. I'm going to be late for work. The fig rolls will be all gone. I'll be tasting cream crackers again all day. And he could already hear them. When grass gets long, you cut it with a lawnmower. Isn't that interesting? If you close your eyes, you can't see. Isn't that interesting? But Kayla saved the day again. Abba, she said. Chocolate-covered cream crackers, said Mr. Mac. What a brilliant idea. Thanks, Kayla. Fish-covered cream crackers, said the seagull. He flew off his branch. I'm going back to the sea, he said, well away from the fish. But Mr. Mac didn't hear him. He was running to the train station. He could already taste the new, exciting chocolate cream crackers. He could already hear them. In 1984, a man ate 13 raw eggs in 1 second. Isn't that interesting? One man pulled 2 train carriages with his teeth. Isn't that interesting? Mr. Mac was one happy man. The last chapter. A chapter that isn't really a chapter because the story ended at the end of the last chapter. All good stories have messages, and this story has loads of them, and here are some of them. 1. If a vulture ever robs your sandwiches, Remember, he's only doing it because he doesn't want to eat you. The vulture, by the way, was the great, keep saying great, for 2 hours and 27 minutes, grandson of the pterodactyl that pooed on the first caveman's head the day after he stepped on the first prehistoric dog poo. 2, something else. 3, your dog might not talk to you, but that doesn't mean that he or she can't talk. Also, not all dogs are millionaires, only the ones that poo a lot. 4, the seagull, make one up yourself. 5, if you have a baby like Kayla Mack in your house, always listen to her advice, especially if it has anything to do with chocolate and cream crackers. 6, and last, if you're an adult and you ever walk on dog poo, ask yourself, why are the gigglers giving me the giggler treatment? But remember, it might not be the giggler treatment. It might just be poo. The end. Right. Oh, hey pal. Oh yes, sorry Rover, I nearly forgot. 7, if your name is Lassie and you live in Galway, Rover says hi. The end. And this picture of Rover and Lassie. And that's the end of the first book. And I thought it was very, very funny. What did you think?